In this video, we're going to continue talking about finding unit rate from a graph. We're going to continue using the same worksheet that we were on before. We are ready now for example 2 from the worksheet. So if you'll go to that graph. Recall that unit rate is also called the constant of proportionality. You may use the letter K to represent unit rate. And the first thing that we need to do to find unit rate in this graph is to identify a coordinate that falls along the line. And when I say that falls along the graph line, I'm referring to this line that I just highlighted in red. So we're going to find a point along that line. So I'm going to choose the point 2, 20. Remember, this is the x-axis, and over here this is the y-axis. So I'm going to label 2 as our x value. The 2 goes down to the x-axis, and the 20 is the y. We can follow that over to the y-axis. The formula for unit rate is k equals y divided by x. Yaks, yaks, yaks. We're trying to remember that formula. You have to have it memorized for the EOG. The y value is 20, so I plug that in to the numerator. The x value is 2, so I plug that into the denominator. The next thing I need to record are my labels. The y-axis has the word dollars written along it. So over here, we're going to record the units dollars in the numerator. In between, we're going to use the word per. For a rate, you're always going to have some value per some other value. So this is dollars per. And then when you look at the x-axis, you'll see the word hours on the x-axis. So the rate we're thinking about is dollars per hour. Maybe how much do you make per hour? How many dollars do you make per hour? So let's take a look at what our answer will be. If you take 20 and you divide it by 2, you're going to get 10. When you record your answer for unit rate, you want to also put the units. So this is $10 per hour. $10 per hour. Remember, in a proportional relationship, the unit rate is going to be the same throughout the entire graphed line. So if I would have chosen a different point, I would have gotten the same answer. For example, if this is 0 and this is 2, then this is going to be 1. If this is 2 and this is 4, the in-between line is going to have a value of 3. This line will be 5, this line will be 7. We're using the clues that we see to figure out what is in between that has not been written down. I'm going to use that first number 1, and that coordinate is 110 because the y value that coordinates or goes with the x value of 1 is 10. So 110. Again, I'm going to quickly write my unit rate formula. K equals y divided by x. I plug in 10 for y, and the x value is 1. And if you take 10 and divide it by 1, you get the same answer, $10 per hour. If I would have chosen instead, I don't know, maybe we choose 550. And I'm going to label x, and I'm going to label y. And the formula is k equals y divided by x. The y value is 50. I plug that into the numerator. The x value is 5. I plug that into the denominator. And 5 divided by 50, again, the answer is 10. The only point you cannot choose on this line is the point 0, 0. Let me show you. If we were to choose this point, 0, 0, the origin, that right there is 0, 0, the origin. If you record it like we did in the past and you write the formula k equals y divided by x, and you plug in 0 for y and you plug in 0 for x, it is impossible to take a number and divide it by 0. So it's a problem to have 0 in the denominator. I like to give students an example so that they understand this concept. I usually have, maybe 3 highlighters. And I give those 3 highlighters to one student in the class, and I'll ask them, all right, I need you to take those 3 highlighters and divide those 3 highlighters into 0 groups. Sometimes the student will just hold out their hand and say, look, I have in my hand the 3 highlighters, and that's 0 groups. And then I have to tell them, no, if they're all in your hand, then that is considered one group. You divided those 3 highlighters into one group. And then they think about it again, and they try to think about how to divide it into 0 groups, and they split it up. And then I tell them, no, you just divided the 3 highlighters into 3 groups. And then they think again, and they realize that there's no way to take those 3 highlighters and put them into 0 groups. It's impossible. And what we call this in math, the answer to this would be undefined. On your calculator, it would say like error, and then it might say not real or something like that. So it's undefined. You can't divide by 0. So the only point you can't choose when you're trying to find unit rate is 0, 0. The next thing we need to talk about is being able to write a sentence about what a particular point represents in context. For example, on the EOG, they might give you the point, let's use 660. And they might give you 4 different sentences, and you have to choose the sentence that represents the point 660. A lot of kids have trouble with this. They look at the point 660 and they say, I don't know what that means. I don't know how to write a sentence about 660. So the tools that I give them is I just tell them to record certain information to help them with their sentence. The first thing you should record is that 6 is the x, and in addition, the x goes with the word hours. So 6 goes with x, 6 goes with hours. The next thing you want to do is you want to label 60 as y, and you also want to label y as dollars. And then all we have to do to make sense of this point in this context is to write about 6 hours and $60. So for example, I could say, John made, and I literally just insert these 2 pieces. Oh, sorry, not those 2 pieces, these 2 pieces. John made $60. All right, we've already done that part. I'm going to cross it out. And we'll say in, and he made it in. Here's the part where we use the 6 hours. In 6 hours. So that point 660 in context, it means that John made $60 in 6 hours. Now, I just made up the part about John. There's nothing in this graph that uses the name John. I'm just trying to make up some story. So you could put in any person or any story. You could add more details. If you want to say, John works at Best Buy and he makes $60 every 6 hours. You could say, 2 sentences like that to describe the meaning. You can make up your own story as long as you have the 6 attached to the hours and the 60 attached to the dollars.